Hello, everybody. It's Daniela here from Matchpoint, and we are here to be answering all of your burning questions about all things networking and events. I am so excited. I'm here with Miguel Neves, the editor-in-chief at Skift Meetings, which is the leading source of travel industry news. More than just being the expert at providing our industry with top insights and innovations, Miguel is also truly passionate about telling the incredible stories that meetings provide. So, Miguel, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
For sure. Are you ready for your rapid fire question?
Let's do it.
Okay, so here we go. So, in your opinion, what are the key elements that make a networking event memorable and impactful for attendees?
I think networking events run a gamut, right? There's lots of different networking events. And I think the classic networking event we get is usually hey, there's some drinks, there's some music, and we let people network. And I think that is very basic and very simple. I think the most impactful networking events are the ones where there's a really careful curation, there's a kind of acknowledgement of who's going to be in the room, and there's an intention of, first of all, making people feel welcome. And that can even start before the event, kind of telling people what to expect. But then when people arrive, making people feel welcome, having somebody host them, or some kind of way to get people connected to break that ice. Doesn't have to be alcohol. A lot of times it includes alcohol, but I'm not saying that that's the answer. I think for a lot of people, alcohol is really not the answer. But technology can play a big part as well here. I think it's not just a matter of just showing up and saying, hey, there's an app, you should network using the app or use LinkedIn or something like that. It's about guiding people. And I think if you're talking about an event with more than 100, 200 people, something like that, up to a really large event, it's very hard to kind of just look around the room and see who's there and kind of get any sort of like read on that. So that's where I think really technology comes in for that, like understanding who's the room, figuring out who's there, and then figuring out where they are. And technology can really also help people connect by matching interests, depending on their bio, depending on the data that you enter. But I don't think technology is a panacea. I don't think technology can just throw technology into a networking event and everything is great. Now, I think it really requires that human element. It requires curation. It requires making sure that the right people are in the room for the right reasons. And it requires kind of understanding why people want to connect and making that easier. And I think the best events are the ones that also sort of leave it up to the people to really figure out what they want to do. Sometimes it's like, okay, there's a networking area, but you could go and have a meeting somewhere else. You can do something somewhere else. So I think the most important thing for me is the human connection and the intentionality of getting people to really connect for the right reasons.
I love that you use the word guiding. I think for a lot of event organizers here, that word can kind of trigger something because, again, like you said, you can't just throw your attendees and say, okay, this is the time allotted for networking, meet. There needs to be this sort of like guidance from the event organizers. And like you said, whether that's through ice breaking or technology that you implement into your event, but the word here that I really like that you said is guiding because event organizers need to be intentional about how they're having their attendees network. Um, do you have any specific examples that you've seen at events or that you've run yourself or that you'd like to see at events of event organizers that have done a really good job of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that arrival moment is super important, right? That's sort of like welcoming people in the room, and that's guidance. It can come in many different ways, but really having someone or a group of people that could say, "Hey, this is the this is the room. These are the type of people that are here. These are the type of conversations. This is the type of thing that's going to happen here. Can I help you meet someone? Can I help you connect with someone else?" I think that kind of hand-holding is super powerful, and I think it also gives people an option to opt out. It's like, no, I have my friends here. I know where I'm going. I don't need help. Great. Moving on, that's fine. Or, hey, I'm really shy and I don't know who's here and I could really help with, how to meet. I think that is, if you can filter that as people walk in, if you can kind of figure that out and get people to go in the right place and kind of help them, then that is for me what real guidance is.
Yeah, I think that's such a great example. And that's something I've read about as well. If you picture yourself in a scenario where you walk into a conversation or into an event and you don't know anybody, It takes a lot to just go up and insert yourself in a conversation if you don't know anyone. And some people can do it, but some people can't, and that's okay. But I think the idea of having like the event organizers actually on the ground and saying, okay, I know this person that just walked in, they should meet this person. And like, how much easier is it to have a conversation with someone when you're physically introduced to them? So I think that that's something I haven't seen at events, and I'd love to see that. Maybe you have seen at events, but just like people on the ground that are intentionally connecting people to each other. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies that are good, because it's very hard for one person to do this, right? Especially if it's a
Yeah,
larger event. But if there are multiple people on a team that have that ability, that have enough connections in the room to help, and even if they're just extroverted and can kind of remember people's names and help break the ice a little bit, that's still helpful. I think
yeah,
having a sort of master networker help you navigate the room, that's a pretty high-end service, right? That's hard to scale, but any kind of help there, I think, is always appreciated. And I think it's more about the intention than necessarily, being super efficient and always connecting the dots.
sure. Yeah, we always talk about intention, and whether you're an event organizer or the person going to an event, you've got to figure out how to network with intention and not just randomize it.
Precisely. I
Absolutely.
totally agree.
All right, Miguel, thank you so much for your time. This was great. I really appreciate the insight, and I think that our event organizers watching this can really take something away from what you shared.
Thanks for having me.